It is Gustavus, and I work as a video officer called D2. This year is our 50th anniversary, so I thought I would do a little, retrospective, go back in time, see how it all started. Caveat, I've not been in the company for 15 years, but I like digging into art, so I thought it would be an interesting experience to look into what we've done and what we are now. And well, we're looking to the future. So the talk is probably sort of was in 5 games, our 15th anniversary perspectives. It was founded in 2009. What inspired me to kind of do this was this BBC podcast that was later turned into a book. Don't know if you have like the book or recently the podcast. Basically, it's exactly what it says, but it's fascinating that it tells sort of a history of the world, 100 objects that range from what you would call significant cultural artifacts that you can see at a museum, but also simple everyday objects like the credit card, and that kind of object. What does it tell us about the financial system? How did it revolutionize the financial system? So I thought it was fascinating, and I thought I would do something similar with choosing 5 games that represent sort of pivotal moments in the company's history and what they hopefully taught us. From the way we do things that will do this in the future. Now, a few things before I get started about the actual games. We are actually present in Bristol. We do have an office right in the middle of the city, and this is where the publishing and the actual development departments are. So if you ever wanted to help out, it's again, there's a bunch of people that are always in the office here. The main office is in a little city called Letchworth, Garden City, about 30 minutes off London between London and Cambridge, and that's where most of the other functions are, so things like marketing, sales, production, the general sort of admin. So the first game I chose to tell the origins of the company, or how it all started, is a game called Guilty Gear. It's a longer established fighting game series that some of you might know. Goes back all the way to PlayStation 1 days. The latest one is Guilty Gear Strive, which was phenomenally successful. So this is, to my knowledge, and as far as I can find, the very first game that had PQube on the box. This was released in 2009 on PlayStation 2 and on PSP, as you can see. 2009 PS2, we kind of came late to the party, and that's a theme that you will see also later. We also came late to the party during the PS3 era. We learned our lesson, we went early with the streets, and that's a whole another story. So Guilty Gear was, at the time, a series that went through different publishers. So before PQube, it was 505 Games. The most recent one was with Bandai Namco. And this game was what you would call pure distribution here. So PQube didn't start as a publisher, it started as a distributor. So they would get the finished product, the box product, and they would sell it into game or art dealers or smiths and make sure that it sells well. But other than that, involvement in actual game development and so on wasn't a whole lot in every case. However, the fact that they did that led to a series of relationships with the developers of some of these games that eventually became full publishing deals, and then later on several games in the Guilty series were published by PQube, not just as a distribution, but as a full publishing show arrangement. So for quite some time, this is what the company did. Up until about 3 years ago, so 2021 was the last year we sort of did distribution. For a number of years, we did things in parallel, so it was PQube was a publisher, but was also distributing titles on behalf of other developers and publishers. As you can see, and that's also a theme, we never did one specific or 2 specific genres. There are publishers who specialize in something specific, and they're very good at that. But we always like to have a range of games in all kinds of genres, from third-person shooters to visual novels to platformers to racing games. Most of the company, I think, we play lots of different kind of games, and we always like that. We always thought it makes things a lot more interesting if we get involved in a variety of games. So as I said before, some of these that began as some distribution deals later on. So this was a Defense Force game that was that we could distribute, but we also published the Defense Force game later on, and a few of the others were sort of the same. Now, the story has good parts, but it also has bad parts. So in 15 years, you do some things right, but you don't do everything right. I have two examples, one which is this one of things that we did wrong, and now we can see back and find them entertaining. Trust me, at the time they were not. So this is a game of 5 gods. It's a fighting game, and the theme is there's various sort of deities battling it out. So there's Zeus, and Buddha, and Jesus Christ, and so I was not there when that was published. Very responsibility. As you can see, it's quite a sensitive subject, so everybody can appreciate that. The outcome of that came out was basically Steam. Steam, as in the entire store, was taken down in Malaysia. And it led to several articles from Bristol and the PCA about the game being banned in Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, and then in Malaysia, the whole store was taken down basically. Now, that was not good. As you can imagine, we had an interesting discussion with Steam at the time. The good outcome was that's how we got a contact with Steam to talk to them. Enough about the good things about it. But yeah, let's just say it was quite a stressful time. Obviously, what ended up happening was we just didn't. All the games in this country was banned, and so that was that. But it's not a selection that not everything is acceptable everywhere. It might seem common sense, but sometimes you don't think of it that way. And I think that was one of the lessons for that game. So it's open now, and it is accessible from the UK. So if you ever wanted to play it, going from a distributor, the next logical step was to basically take some of these relationships to the next level and become a full-scale publisher. So that happened in 2015. And the first game that was a result of that was a game called Stanks Gate. Stanks Gate is a transmedia project. You might know it as an anime, there's a manga series. It's quite well known. And the game itself is a visual novel. That was quite a risky venture at the time because a lot of people thought visual novels don't really sell. They cost a lot because translating them even in one language costs a lot of money. People are not very interested. Even the ones that kind of existed and were big, like the early series by Capcom, were kind of, they had to turn it into an American sort of context for the game to kind of work. A lot of people thought this is very Japanese, this is never going to work. Actually, it did really, really well for us. Sony added it in the PS Plus catalog. At the time, it would give it away to hundreds of thousands of subscribers. It was very successful, and it led us to ever since publishing loaded novels because we realized there's quite a bit of an audience, and that includes a lot of us that are fans of this action thing. So that was the beginning of a relationship with a specific developer called Mages, and since then we have published more than 10 games with them, I believe. So the beginning of the company, from about 2015 to 2017, the games that we were publishing in both physical and digital format were all from Japan. So as you can see, some examples are here. Several of which are with developers that we've worked with several times. They include historical series like Blaze Blue, Singers of Metal Wax, Web Defense Force, and again, quite a variety of genres from horror games to action RPGs, platforming, and so on. So the origins of the company as a distributor was also something that we kept in that to this day, most of the games we publish get physical release. We do appreciate the physical product. We do like going to a shop, seeing our game. We know developers like it, and that's something that we would like to continue doing for as long as possible. We know one day that's not going to be the case, but I think we're going to keep going for as long as we possibly can. So the second instance, so I'm sure you are also aware of age rating values. So the biggest ones are 19, which covers most of Europe, outside of Germany, where USK is the red body. ESRB, which covers the Americas, and Serum Japan. There's others, but these are the biggest ones. So ESRB covers the Americas, and when you want to use your game physically, you have to get an age rating from that. That goes to the game's box. In that case, there was a game called Galaga Double Piece that was released in 2016. Now, The actual age rating was M for mature, which means you have to be 17 and the older expired because of sexual conduct. However, the rating that went to the box, as you were seeing there, had E for everyone. Everyone. So this is what happened. It was a PlayStation Vita version, not PlayStation 4. The front of the box had the correct rating, which was fine. However, the back of the box had the misprint. Now, this had two outcomes. One, you get a very hefty fine, and you get into a list where every single game that you release gets tagged very, very carefully, just in case you do it again. And the second is we have to do a product recall, which is expensive, annoying, and so on. So this is what happened in this instance. Then of course people went into the usually asking will it be down something? It did. The problem is there's not that many copies of that. Some of them went out to customers before it was eventually recalled. So some of the people that bought it, are selling it for quite a good amount these days. I have said to the office to kind of got myself because that's good money. I've been lucky. So the third part is in 2017, we're moving into the kind of later era, which is publishing beyond Japan. So the first game we published from a development team outside of Japan was a game called Conquest. We are acquainted. It's quite a cute, very good, nice action RPG. It was made by a team of 4 in Singapore who used to work for Fight Tecmo. Then they went independent. They wanted to make their own thing, that was the game they made. It was a new thing for them, and it was a new thing for us because it was not something that we had experienced at the time. Most of the teams specialized in games in Japan, and that was, we didn't know what would happen. It turns out it did really, really well. It expanded our mindset into, we should be working with teams from all over the world. Japan will always have a steady pipeline of games, but we shouldn't limit ourselves to just one country. Since then, we work with teams from all over the world. Some of these are from the UK, like these two icons in Drift, United States, Indonesia, from these two, Spain, Indonesia. So again, what is in common with the other two categories is that the games we have published are, from monster collectors to platformers to third-person shooters, racing games. There's no common theme. It's all games that we feel passionate about, it's games we like, and it's games that we feel deserve an audience. And most of the development partners we have worked with are here. So we always try to keep that up to date, but this is the most up to date that I had. And to kind of visualize that, I did this. So the counter bits are development teams we work with from all over the world. Now, there's a few obvious missing points. We have to work with anyone with colors, keeping them like the chain. One day, well, we'll thank you from Surrey, New Zealand. I get it, but we know there's a big development community. But ideally, in ideal world, this should all be perfect one day. Hopefully, one day we'll get to that point. But so far, there's about 20 countries where we work with various development teams. So I think we try to work with as many as possible. We don't really take into account where they're from. And whether it's a solo development team, one person making a game for the studio having 50, we work with teams of all the shapes and sizes. So some sort of key takeaways from looking back at these 15 years, besides stuff that I've already talked about. So one of the things that relates to what I mentioned about visual launch, for example, fostering a game, fostering a community around games is massively important. Even that community is very small. Very same community can follow multiple games at the same time. They can come work this called their big customer. They can buy, they like visual novels, they buy 10 if you release 10. supporting that community is equally important as well. So we have released a lot of fighting games, and we, as a result, have organized a lot of fighting game tournaments, supported fighting game tournaments, sponsorships. Again, it's important to keep your eye out and listen to what the community wants, especially communities like the fighting game community are very sensitive to things like netcode and balance of games. So the second is to believe, even if the concepts in release, to have an unwavering belief in that and work to try to convince people of that same belief. So again, going back to the example of the visual novels, convince people that they can be commercially successful. Sometimes you don't just have to convince your actual customers, the public. You have to sell it in country first. You have to sell it to people from within the company, because sometimes the reaction you get is, well, is anybody interested in this? Is anybody going to buy this? Is anybody there? Sometimes you got to do some of that retaliate as well. Even the biggest PR disasters, and we have had a few, can create a big opportunity. The thing is, you must learn your mistakes and ideally not repeat them. So the misprint thing, for example, thankfully we haven't had it seriously. Though we're, vetted time and again, it hasn't happened. So for that, always double and triple check everything. Even if everybody told you, oh yeah, check it, check it again. A friend of mine from another company says, everything that can possibly go wrong will go wrong. That is my philosophy. I truly believe that. And then the final point is to not be afraid to look for games in unusual places. So people tend to look for games in places where traditionally video games are made. Elsewhere, Japan, countries like the US, Korea. Games are being made everywhere these days. So don't be, if you work for a publisher or even agencies, you look out in places where you're using it, do that. And expand your scouting and your relationship with outside of the big events. Everybody likes TVC, everybody likes Gamescom, but there's a lot of other opportunities to meet people. And that was one of the positives in the COVID era, that all of these events went online, and from an accessibility point of view, a lot of more people had access to studios, to publishers that wouldn't otherwise be the way the customers went to attend something like TVC, because they would cost them 10K first. So I think, we keep going. It's been 15 years. There's been good times, there's been bad times, there's been, all kinds of things happening, but we're optimistic. It's a form of entertainment that will never go away, and we would like to be around for as long as humanly possible and to entertain as many people as we possibly can. Not to have a partner, so thank you very much. Yes.
Many developers don't read.
Yeah.
Actually,
No.
I'm thinking I'm not only paying because I'm in the whole country, so.
No, I mean, Romania has, EA has a big studio there.
Exactly, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah. We haven't worked with anyone yet, but I have seen pictures from studios there.
I'm trying to get the whole of this community there, try to meet, to get an idea of how to develop the community. So that's why I'm asking.
I'm from Greece myself, so I know there's a development community. I have met a few people here that, but it's like that's the benefit of something like Ukie. Organizes events, brings people together. Thank you for the invitation, by the way. It's very much appreciated. It brings people together, organizes these things, and it allows us to talk to each other. Places like Greece, I don't know, maybe Romania is the same. That we don't even have an event where people can gather. There's a lot of unofficial events. There's not a central thing that will happen every year. At least that's as a point of reference for the community to gather. It's still in the early stages. Hopefully that will change, but video games have been made in Britain since the 70s. That's not the case in Greece, so that's a fundamental difference. It's a very recent thing.
I mean, I've been in Bristol for 5 years, and only in the past 2 years, most 1 year and a half, have actually been adding to the community. I was always wondering if AG and this, they're nothing related. But with the COVID was another problem, so. But as soon as that happened, that started. I've actually started with them. It was my first event. But I find it difficult. I find it difficult sometimes to find this to me.
Yeah. I think doesn't you have a map where you can look at the companies? So you can just go and look at the company cover and you can see rather than
That's kind of how it was.
In the UK games that.
Yeah, they dropped them.
Yep.
They have to.
Thanks for the talk. As a sort of UK publisher,
Yes.
the Supercharge the UK publisher, how did you end up mostly publishing Japanese games, or were you mostly distributing them in the West to begin with? Is that how you ended up working quite into them?
Kind of both. So a lot of these relationships began with distribution because at the time a lot of Japanese companies would rather use a Western company to localize and shoot their titles. And as time went by, you like to develop actual relationships, and you, for example, before COVID and now again, we send people to come 4 times a year, and they stay like for 1 to 2 weeks and visit in studios, talking to people. Some of these relationships from long standing, others are newer, so talking to each every year, they meet others years, and you sort of build a name. So people, they've seen that you released 50 Japanese games, especially they kind of trust you and do a good job. There are like Japanese people working for this company as well that used to work for Japanese publishers, so that also helps because they meet people and they know people. But yeah, and also I think a lot of people that work for people, like myself, we kind of lean that way. We very much like these kind of games, and I think that's what we need. So we have quite a few pros. So yeah, it's kind of. But yeah, purely UK company. Like we did have an office in Japan, then COVID happened and now we don't. So.
Is it Tower of Gods? Like a game?
No, Final also.
Fight of Gods. Which Fight of Gods? 2 questions. One is, does the bringing this down in other countries actually help sales in everywhere else? And second one is, what is Jesus' friendship with?
Your first question. Yes, but not to the extent that you think. It's one of those cases where it went viral and you think, oh, that must have done it did help sales, but it didn't make it so something with Amphor. The second is, I don't know, but the trailer they made for it has him at some point and it says, can't believe I'm saying this, she's back and she's cross.
We actually solved the incident, so that was a little bit concerned about how that is going to be missing, and I told him, just do whatever you think you like to do and try to get in touch with somebody from that community is creative. Talking with something within and see what his reaction is, and it's a bit positive and fun and lovely and having the was creative. Before actually trying to release something that you're gonna get crucified for it.
I think that's good advice. Like input from someone's community, if you're making a game representing a culture, is one of the best things you can do because and obviously the more of it you get, because you know what I mean. So
Yeah.
The better it is. It's never going to be 100% authentic because you're trying to represent someone else in a way, but you can always try and do your best. At the end of the day, I think people will appreciate trying other things. And representation for a lot of small communities around the world is sorely missing. So even if it's not 100% right, it doesn't get things 100% right, people will still feel better than if it wasn't done well.
Therefore,
That's I believe at least. Do you have any thoughts? Yeah. Oh.
Hi, thanks for the talk. I was just wondering, how do you, what criteria do you assess both the studio and the game that might be pitching towards you?
The studio itself, so if it's someone we work with before, it's a lot easier because you know them, you have established relationship, but you would look at things like track record in the first place if it's a thing, but a lot of times it isn't. It might be the studio's first game, but you do want to look at previous experience anyway. It could be a first time studio making the first game, but the individuals working for it might have been elsewhere making days. You look at things like, what is the ambition of the project, what is the scale of the project, is it feasible? Obviously things like the budget, 82 is always a concern because for AAA it's not necessarily a big challenge, something like us it is. In terms of the game itself, I think you look at it from the point of view of, first of all, not need to actually like it. We think there's something there that people will enjoy. We look at other things in our portfolio, see if it matches. So there's things that we probably wouldn't be very good at. We've never released a first-person shooter. I don't think we would be the best partner for something like that. So in that case, we would be honest and say, maybe you're better off talking to X, Y, Z publicists. They could be more structured for you. And then, how establish a relationship with the studio in advance and try to work out which best. And I think as long as the interest match in terms of what are the finances you're putting, what's the time scales and time frames, that's about it. But there's an evaluation process. There's a team dedicated to that, and that's their main job to do develop relationship, assess games, call it that.
John, I've seen a couple of VR games in your presentation. Can we talk about their top 10 to do? Is it like
It's just a bit deceptive. Yeah. They're not VR games per se, they have a VR mode. Yeah, but this is not something that we're very good at. In those cases, the developers wanted to add a VR mode because the PlayStation VR was hot at the time. But it's not, I think it's VR games, and even if I see something amazing, I always say, there's VR publishers out there that are absolutely amazing. We're not one of those.
But
Yeah.
It is.
Good. Thank you very much.